The year 1997 was a year to remember, filled with tragedy and triumph, but mostly tragedy. From landing on a new planet to the death of a cultural icon, 1997 will be remembered forever.
Unfortunately, 1997 saw the death of Mother Teresa, whose efforts in life focused on helping the poor and eventually made her a saint.
So she died in 1997, September 5th. And that's significant because it's also around the same time that Diana had died. And so these are two world figures that had died in the same year, and many, many people in the news media were starting to compare Diana and Mother Teresa, both positively and negatively. Mother Teresa, as you probably know, started the Missionaries of Charity, and something that some people might not know is Mother Teresa came to Baton Rouge. She came at the invitation of our Bishop Stanley Ott, who was bishop at the time in the 80s and the early 90s. Another thing that's really, really unique is Mother Teresa's official photographer is from Baton Rouge. It's a woman named Marie Constantine. And Marie is a regular parishioner. She went to LSU Christ the King, but she started taking pictures of Mother Teresa, and Mother Teresa noticed that in a good sense. And so she invited her to become her official photographer. When she was beatified in Rome, there was a big, gigantic picture of her announcing her beatification mass, and that picture was taken by Marie. So it was just a phenomenal testament to Marie, her faith, and that Baton Rouge connection of getting to know Mother Teresa.
Mother Teresa of Calcutta died from a heart attack on September the 5th, 1997, after a life dedicated to helping the poor and dying. Her last major appearance was on the balcony of her home in Calcutta. She died shortly after, at the age of 87. Mother Teresa's funeral in Calcutta was nothing short of a state occasion. The Missionaries of Charity by now had brothers in the order as well as the 3,000 sisters all over the world. They are now guided by a constitution she wrote for them. Many were attracted.
The tragedies continue with the Oklahoma City bombing, perpetrated by Timothy McVeigh.
They were anti the government. They protested, what had taken place in Waco, Texas, and they felt that the government was overly present in individuals' lives and very much took to heart their right to bear arms as a means to protect yourself from the government. And here was a guy who was young. I think it was Terry Nichols and Timothy McVeigh. And neither of them would have ever, I didn't know anything about them prior to the Oklahoma City bombing when it took place. It was just so crazy to think, here were two guys, they put explosives in a moving van and blew up a federal building. And I think the impact, beyond even what happened in Oklahoma, it was a nightmare, completely unexpected. But it made you fearful to go into government buildings here. We're starting to see things more like school shooting. Well, if you have jury duty, if you have to go downtown and take care of this, it's always the concern that there might be, what other sort of anti-government nut was going to try to do something, because those were things. So even though today I think we probably worry more about terrorists in terms of being from outside of the U.S., at that time it was a much greater concern of terrorism within the U.S.
The parking levels, which just simply flattened onto one another like pancakes.
You have also talked about more bomb threats around the country. One at an IRS office in Boston, another one at the federal building in Fort Worth, Texas. Now, we're not sure how all of this is connected, but we're getting word of it.
The jury has spoken, and their verdict is entitled to respect, and all Americans should accord it that respect until such time, if ever, it is overturned by a court of competent jurisdiction.
This is not a day of great joy for the prosecution team. We're pleased that the system worked and the justice prevailed. But the verdict doesn't diminish the great sadness that occurred in Oklahoma City 2 years ago. Our only hope is that the verdict will go some way to preventing such a terrible, drastic crime from ever occurring again.
1997 also saw the death of a British royal icon, Princess Diana. She died in a fatal car crash.
So she is someone that I grew up seeing all the time. That was, just very much part of, like I said, just an icon, sort of a very prominent figure. And even though British in American life, I don't think I was unique in that way. She made royalty seem so accessible. It was the paparazzi who had run them off the road in their Mercedes that caused their car to crash. Say they ran off the road. It was just so shocking because her boys were still young. There was a great deal of sadness so here was this sudden death. And because she was so anti-establishment, but that's what we're going to go with. The Queen always seemed to give her a cold shoulder. And there was a lot of criticism of the Queen whenever it was Diana's funeral. And I remember it was a beautiful funeral and her sons were walking behind. They had the horse-drawn carriage. It was just so terribly sad because, you wonder what would happen to these boys, that they didn't have their mother. It was very obvious how close they were to one another. What a tragedy for them. Who would they become without her influence in their lives? And like I said, I remember the Queen of England received a huge amount of criticism because she never really came out and formally said anything acknowledging Diana's death.
We are seeing the debris at the moment, Stephen. A badly crushed car, the roof caved in, the bonnet and the engine caved in.
Well, if that is the princess's car, then obviously that's extremely serious. Because
Stephen, I have to interrupt there because within the last few moments, the Press Association in Britain, citing unnamed British sources, has reported that Diana, Princess of Wales, has died. This is not yet confirmed.
But the tragedies of 1997 don't stop there. When many members of the Heaven's Gate cult committed suicide in hopes of catching a ride.
I think it was 30 to 40 people were found dead in the San Diego area, I believe. At the time, there was big news about the Hale-Bopp comet, which was passing real close to Earth. And around the time it was getting very close, or maybe the day it was at its closest, all of a sudden on the news that night, 40 people were found having consumed poison in dark outfits because they believed that the Hale-Bopp comet was a spaceship that if they were dead, the physical containers of the body would be gone and would let their inner being get on that spaceship.
Light broke over this community of mansions and swimming pools. Coroner's workers could be seen carrying shrouded bodies out of the house to their vans. They filled 3 trucks with bodies. The investigators had little to say about what they had seen.
Big, luxurious house with a lot of dead human beings there.
Sheriff's deputies released a videotape of the scene inside the house taken by their officers. It shows room after room, body after body. The coroner said the group appeared to use a combination of drugs, alcohol, and plastic bags to kill themselves. Bodies were found on beds, cots, and mattresses throughout the house, all on their backs with their hands at their sides. They were dressed in black pants and white shirts.
They were all covered with a purple-colored shroud covering their face in a triangular shape down the front all across their chest.
Now in sports, opponent Evander Holyfield soon learned that nothing hits or bites harder than Mike Tyson.
So the fight began, and definitely within the first 3 minutes of the fight, Holyfield was dominating that. And Tyson recovered, but for the first 3 rounds, he was dominated. In the 4th round, he came charging out like a bull. He didn't even have his mouthpiece in. I remember that. I'd never seen that. And so the referee had to send him back to put in his mouthpiece. He put it in, he came back out charging, and was aggressively attacking Holyfield. He got in a clinch where the fighters, a lot of times back, people don't watch boxing more, but they'll tie each other up, wrap their arms around, you know, so the other guy can't punch. And they were in one of these clinches, and Tyson bit his right ear and actually spit it out. And I bet you, I don't know what it was, but I mean, it was a chunk of flesh. I mean, I don't know if it was a half an inch, but, and Holyfield pushed back and he was writhing in pain. I mean, literally, as you can imagine.
Oh, and some nasty stuff in there. There needs to be a bite almost. Holyfield is very unhappy. Look at this.
1997 was also a big year for the scientific community as NASA successfully landed the Pathfinder base and Sojourner rover on Mars.
It had been over 20 years since the last time that anybody landed a mission on the surface of Mars. Part of the reason was the Viking missions in the 1970s had some experiments to try to detect life. And those experiments were ambiguous at best and probably did not reveal life. And so the interest in Mars kind of died off after the Viking landings, at least going to the surface of Mars. But in the 1990s, you know, the interest started coming back, and that was the era of faster, better, cheaper at NASA. And so there was a motivation to try to pull together a very inexpensive mission to go to the surface of Mars, and that was the genesis of Pathfinder. It discovered conglomerate, like rounded pebbles in the rocks where it landed, which suggests that water used to run on the surface of Mars. It also discovered the dust, Martian dust, was magnetized. You know, if you have a magnetic field, it'll be attracted to it. And then also it was able to video dust devils in the area.
Roger that. Okay, we've got a good strong signal now.
I'm Carlos Zeus, and 1997 was a pretty eventful year in my opinion. It's 38 degrees outside, and I'm pretty cold. Y'all have a good day. Thank you.